Hey there friends, Dave Paulides, CanAm Missing Project. Copyrighted edition for our channel. And Huck is in the office. Huck TV. Yes. Oh, you're good girl. Oh, you pretty girl. Yes. Oh yeah. She likes scratches. Yes, you're a good girl. Yes, you're good. And it's been super hot here. It's been 100 degrees every day. So she doesn't do very good outside, do you, in that heat? Oh yeah, you want more. What she does is she likes to lay over the air conditioning vents just to stay cool. And then when I'm doing my work in here, she'll come in, sit down right at my feet, and just pretend that she's garden dad. And I appreciate that. You're such a good girl. You're a good girl. Okay, well, we got some good stuff for you today. Yes, we do. And Huck is just gonna lay at my feet, make sure Dad's doing the right thing. And we've got letters for you today. And oh, do we got letters. We got some real interesting stuff for you. So hang in there. Just briefly, MontanaCon, October 8th. Please, if you're thinking about going, get your tickets now because they're starting to sell out. And here's the QR code to go to the event. It's in Kalispell, Montana. Some of the best speakers around. If you put your phone over the QR code, you can get it, or freeze frame it and write down the link right there. It's at the Red Lion Hotel. The best lineup I could get. Myself, Joe Hauser from the Vortex are sponsoring it. It will be good. Okay, letters. Hey Dave, my wife and I love watching all your shows, and some of them multiple times. For that reason, when we look at your channel list, we noted and confirmed something that is very strange that you should be aware of. No matter how many times we watch and put a thumbs up on a letter segment, it shows up only as being partially watched. That's been my complaint for a long time. Attempting to fix this, we watched all the way to the very end, this segment 3 times, and yet it shows that it is only partly completed. No matter how many times we watch it to the end, it still shows up only as partially watched. I heard you mention that for you to get full compensation for any segment, you must watch it to the end. We knew this from the other channels we watch and always watch your shows through the very end and always give you a thumbs up. Thank you. In addition, you recently mentioned the low viewership of a brief segment you did called the Osprey Nest Update. That show didn't show up on our subscription, so after you mentioned the lack of views, I literally had to search for it to be able to watch it. I checked and we were still subscribed, but it didn't show up until after I had searched, found it, and watched it. I'll tell you, YouTube is just playing games with me. It's the only segment that we have noticed this lack of showing up in our favorite shows. These kind of shenanigans feel like something that an AI computer does. I'm a retired 30-year programmer and have remained current. Kind of a habit. And this kind of thing is well within the realm of how AI might seek to reduce viewership. At the end of your UFO's Bigfoot Orbs segment, you talked about how the letter segments cause people to think. I believe this is the trigger that AI uses to demote them. AI has been told to reduce any podcast that causes people to think or discuss how to think rationally. Independent thinkers are the threat to their quest of power. Elon Musk is coming. AI that will be directed to seek the truth may be able to counter this someday. The problems with AI as it has zero mortality, and when given general directions, AI programming is done by itself, and nobody's seeing or even knowing how it carries out those directions, and certainly will not be able to do it in ethical ways. There appears to be no recourse against AI for that reason that nobody told it how to accomplish its directives, and nobody can know because that is how it's designed. My suggestion is to keep doing what you have been doing, but to avoid getting upset with the things you have no control. You are not alone. And over time, the word about this will spread. Keep the faith. All right. Now, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go grab a coffee, grab your favorite drink. Today I'm drinking Blackberry Hint, no sweetener. And put your feet up. If you're in Alaska in the cold, bring a blanket. If you're in the heat, sit in front of the AC. Because now I'm going to read you a letter that is very interesting and takes you around a lot of turns. I've never read one like this. Okay, Dave, I've had this email in a draft form for several months. Obviously, no urgency to send it, and I kept remembering things I wanted to say. So unfortunately, the chronology jumps around. My name is Mike. I'm 70 years old. I'm married to my wife now for 16 years. I was born and raised in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and lived in the other areas of Minnesota all my life. I am, however, spent a great deal of time professionally in the western and southwest states from Colorado west. I'm well educated and went to 12 years of Catholic school and several more years at Christian college. I've explored the religious aspects of these subjects. For perspective, I am not religious, but I am spiritual and follow Christian values, and I believe in a conscious, intelligent higher power. I feel like you are my brother from a different mother, like we've been close friends for decades. I watch your movies and feel like we're sitting by a campfire talking to one. I always enjoyed college lectures, just sit, listen, learn, relax. After my wife goes to bed, I sit down, open my YouTube on my TV, find a video of yours, sit back, relax, and enjoy. I am on board with almost everything you present and where you are headed with it. Thank you. Dave, I want to extend my condolences for the loss of your son. I can only imagine that pain. I am so very sorry for your loss. I have one biological son, he's 37, and one stepson, 28, and I don't know what I'd do if I lost either. My biological son's mother, my first wife, was murdered in our home by a stalker while I was on duty when my son was 3. I became a single parent in a second. He is very important to me, and when you know what that feels like, when you talk about Ben, my heart hurts for you. It hurts for Ben. And I tear up. I am cursed in that I can feel other people's pain as it was mine. If I could take all of your pain away and take it on myself so you would be free for it, I would do that in a heartbeat, my friend. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. I'm writing, I've talked about this journey with you guys in grief. And grief is an avenue where you can't place love. I think that we're given this burden to carry in life. I don't know why. I don't know why Mike lost his wife like that. I don't know why I lost Ben. I deeply would have wished that I hadn't had to carry that on my shoulders my whole life. But I do. And I've got to learn to live with it better. I'm writing to you because of your research, collect and analyze information, and you do it very well. Obviously, you do an enormous amount of reading. My information may or may not be of interest to you, but I believe it will be, as it's all in your wheelhouse. Oh yeah, I read this once before. I'm interested. I'm asking for nothing from you except that you read it, please. I do not expect a response, nor do I have any expectation. I respect how busy you are and what you are doing. Even though this is very long, and I apologize for that, but I'm an older guy with a lot of experiences. Grab your favorite beverage and get comfortable in your favorite chair with Huck. She's right next to me. There's a lot of information over many years, and yet only a small part of my experiences. I'm reading and watching all of your information to see how it aligns with mine. Please read this. I don't think you'll regret it. You'll either think I'm a wacko or legit. Either way, it's all true. No, it's one of the best put together letters I've had. I write this for your information. I just ask that you don't mention specific locations as I describe them, except perhaps northern Minnesota is okay. Don't want strangers poking around, disturbing the energy. All this being said, if I were to ask, I would swear what I write here, that it is true and accurate to the best of my knowledge. Credibility, as you know, is very difficult on these subjects, even when you take great care. Some people are, shall we say, difficult at best. My experiences take place mostly in wilderness settings where I'm alone and not looking for anything paranormal. So it's next to impossible in my case to have a witness every time. Although in instances I do have witnesses. My wife, my son, and an old buddy who I'll call Bud have had experiences. Unfortunately, my interest in these unexplained things don't solidify until I saw a pattern that had developed some knowledge of paranormal activities. Nor do I realize they would become almost commonplace for me. Consequently, dating most of these incidents is difficult until the last most significant experiences when I knew I needed to keep a written record over memory that I can and will distort. I don't go out looking for experiences or expect them because I've learned nothing will happen then. I learned long ago this is important, that paranormal events do not perform on command. No, they do not. If you experience a paranormal event, in my opinion, an experience, it's because there's a reason for you to have that experience, not because you orchestrated it. That is so true. Most of my experiences have occurred and predate the smartphone era, and I wasn't carrying a camera because I wasn't sightseeing or investigating. I use the word paranormal to mean events that are beyond the scope of scientific explanation at this time. I'm not in love with social media. In fact, I loathe it. I'm proficient in it, but I can do without it, and I try very hard to do that. I believe that social media triggers people in negative ways and is directly related to many criminal and evil incidents. So I've only recently, in the last few months, become aware of the full extent of your work. I've seen all the documentaries multiple times, including the UFO Connection. Excellent. However, I have yet to read any books, but I have a few. Seeing the documentaries and learning of the books, I didn't realize you had such extensive interest in websites and have been at this for decades. Had no idea. I have Tribal Bigfoot, the Hoopa Project, Russian Hominology, Off the Grid, and The Devil's in the Detail. I scrolled through your YouTube videos to look at the Missing 411 videos. I had no idea your work was so extensive until I saw a website on the UFO Connection. For me personally, I got a great deal of useful information from Vanished. Yeah, Vanished is a show I did for Prometheus on the History Channel. You can watch it on Amazon. I don't own it. I got a great deal of useful information from that show. To my surprise, I saw Bigfoot videos I took and finished that class. The UFO UAP class, waiting for class 5. I'm hooked on all your work. Admirable and impressive, as are you. Keep doing what you're doing. Stay in the fight, brother. The world needs a man like you spreading the facts. By the way, factual news and missing persons are my favorite segment. You present things that would be hard to find elsewhere in the news. Please don't stop. If you were to combine the news and the letters, it's not a big deal. I would still watch, but I prefer them separate. My old boss used to tell me you can't be all things to all people, so don't even try. And you're not required to set yourself on fire to keep the rest of the world warm. It's your channel, do it your way. People are going to get in their undies in a bunch and leave, so be it. Those people are not loyal to you anyway. A little about my background. Over the years, I've worked in private security as a director of security at a large Minneapolis hospital. Because we secured other buildings and facilities in the area, I was required to have a private investigator's license. I was in one of the high crime areas in the city in the early 80s when it was across the street from the former Minneapolis Metrodome, which produced its own set of issues on a daily basis. I had a security force ranging from 40 to 60, each required to be licensed or eligible licensed to Minnesota Post. Events at the Metrodome brought its own set of problems in addition to the usual neighborhood violence, typical drug crimes that hospitals at that time did not want to acknowledge. I also worked in law enforcement for a sheriff's office at 2 different times, in patrol and adult corrections, about 10 years. During this time, I participated in a few searches for missing people. One was on the dive team. During that time, the sheriff dropped my name and I was recruited into a classified government group, also for about 12 years. I'm bound by more than one non-disclosure agreement because of that. That's all I could say about that, and except that the intense specialized training, indoctrination, and unique skill sets associated with that training, it is not relevant here anyway. My beliefs are ultimately evidence-based and analytical. Follow the evidence, follow the money, and the answers will come. Many times after an experience would say, I saw it, I can describe it, but I don't know what it was. I'm only my own worst critic. I will analyze some more, overanalyze, overthink an experience. I'm convinced it is fact or until I dismiss it or file it as unexplained. As part of my work life in law enforcement was profoundly violent and required that we evaluate it by a psychologist specialized in trauma debriefing, and that follows almost every operation. He described me as hypervigilant, extremely observant, and I have a sixth sense that drives me nuts, but has certainly saved my life on more than one occasion. I know exactly what you mean. Additionally, my work has caused me to be almost obsessive about accuracy and thoroughness, and to immediately record in writing what I experienced as my frame of reference expanded. Early on, as with most people, if a person has no knowledge of Sasquatch, then that person can't use Sasquatch as an explanation. So much information to present for a clear perspective, but this is already too long. Following my law enforcement career, I worked in tech security for 2 Midwest electric utilities for 10 years. I got hurt in a stupid, completely avoidable accident in my cabin, tearing my bicep tendon off the bone. End result was permanent nerve damage in my hand, wrist, and forearm, and a life of intense chronic nerve pain 24/7. I'm in my 10th year of that. This resulted in my having to retire about 8 years too early. A big kick in the nuts financially. It does, however, give me the opportunity to spend as much time in the outdoors as I want. Living with intense pain is difficult. I'm trained to deal with that. I stay in shape, stay busy, stay active. I practice Tai Chi, TM meditation, and I learn everything I can about anything. The only silver lining, I guess, 6 months after my accident, my wife was diagnosed with MS. She's been an RN for almost 40 years, and because of the MS, she can't physically do direct patient care in the hospital setting anymore. She works from home doing utilization management admin work from the hospital. I owe her my life, as she has saved mine quite literally twice. I've had 3 mentors who significantly impacted my life. Some simple thoughts on them guide me in certain situations. 1. Occam's razor. When facing competing explanations for the same phenom, the simplest explanation is likely the correct one. 2. If it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's a duck. Trust your gut. Be conscious of tunnel vision. Listen more than you talk. Oh, exactly. I saw you say in a movie, I believe, that you are open-minded, but at times you have to set up parameters and not go too far down the rabbit hole. I agree. I'm a skeptic. After all I have experienced, I know there are things that are not natural in this world, and sometimes an experience will grab you and haul your butt down the hole, kicking and screaming anyway. From my earliest childhood memories, I experienced unnatural, unexplained events in our house, as did my dad. I'm not afraid to say it, my house was a crazy haunted house. I won't go into those experiences unless you want to hear them later. As a kid, starting at about 8 years old, my dad and I would sit in the backyard and watch the night sky. We started out just to look for the earliest satellites that we were launching back in the 50s, 60s, but it turned into much more. My dad had 2 sets of powerful binoculars. Back then, we were seeing similar objects to what are being documented and publicized today. I look at MUFON photos and I say to myself, I've seen that many times. We lived a few blocks from the University of Minnesota. Example, one night in the late 50s, I was told to take the garbage out. I walked outside, it was dark, but I turned on the outdoor lights, and immediately above me, treetop height, over our driveway, was a bright red cylindrical object the size of a full moon at a close distance. As I observed it from where I stood, it was not the moon. The moon was behind it and much higher in the sky. The object wasn't moving, no sound, very close, no features. It felt as if it was looking directly at me, watching me. I screamed for my dad. I remember he ran outside and froze, staring at it. I asked what it was. It started to pulse, dimming, and then back to a bright. He said, get in the house, which I did. He came in a few minutes later and said, it's gone. As a little kid, I didn't know or what to ask. The object is tattooed on my memory, as are all the experiences I will talk to this. In my life, I've seen similar things many times. If you've never seen anything like that, if you've never had an odd occurrence in life, then it's really hard to appreciate what this man is saying. I've had several of these. And just like he says, it's tattooed on your brain. It's like it happened yesterday. Many times while in the backyard in the late 50s and 60s at night, we would see the same scenario with some variations. 2 blocks away was a grain elevator with multiple silos. We would see a light in the sky appearing to be over the elevators, but more likely they were over the Mississippi, which was only another 2 blocks away. Usually it would be a larger single object, first appearing white. It would maneuver in ways that nothing we had could begin to do. It would pulsate, fly in right angles, fly vertically up and down. Then it would pause, pulsate, get very dim, then suddenly enlarge like an overinflating balloon, and then explode into a starburst with 5 or 6 small multicolored round objects. Some nights the smaller objects would go through the same sequence. Some would disappear. Some would blink and be gone. At some point the main object would get very bright and suddenly the sky was clear of all these objects. If this was today, I would say it was hundreds of drones programmed to fly like that. To me, the important thing was that these objects never could be seen coming into the frame from somewhere else or flying out of the frame while visible. They just would appear and disappear. Let me say something about this. He talked about the Mississippi River. I've chronicled so many disappearances in the greater Minnesota, Minneapolis area in association with the Mississippi River that I forgot the number at this point. But they're in the books, and I've done many videos about these. And for him to explain how he sees these things out there kind of fits into all the puzzle. My wife and I saw on a local broadcast about 15 years ago an interview with a local paranormal investigator. I looked at my wife and asked, "There are paranormal investigators?" Ghost hunting shows had just hit the TV scene. "I wanted to do that," I said. We contacted the organization, applied for positions, got them, and in a short time we were the case managers. We interviewed in person the potential clients in their homes, screening incoming potential cases closely. My law enforcement background and interview and interrogation experience were invaluable. Based on the information, we would decide if we would get involved. This lady I knew was the founder of the group. She was sensitive in many ways. Example, we became friends like twins. If I had a bad day, was sick, or had a bad day or an incident, I'd get a text from her saying, "Tell me about it," or "Call me right away. You're going down the wrong path," or "Glad you had a great day." Out of the blue, kind of freaked me out at first. She was always spot on every single time, just amazed me and my wife. A psychic? Perhaps. But what I stated about her is a fact. She kept her group, but stepped back from direct involvement in it. I didn't like how the new group leads handled things, so I said we're starting our own group, and we did. We designed a website, we interviewed people, and brought in 6. I trained everyone on interviewing and investigations. Admittedly, our group, as were all others, were, as I put it, as seen on TV groups. As you described TV Bigfoot researchers, so are the ghost hunting groups. With them too, same poop, different day. We ran our group for 4 years, following 3 years with the other group. Finally, I said, what are we doing here? We go into different situations and do the same things every time. We collect evidence and other worldly things, but what more did we expect to find? The Holy Grail? We would get unexplained videos or photographs, EVPs, unexplained EMF fluctuations, an unexplained slap, a push, a scratch, a bruise, and in my case, one investigation much worse. Then do it all over again. The group thought that we were doing good, but I said, to what end? Explain the unexplained. I'm not that arrogant. I've been convinced there is more out there, but we'll never explain it doing the same things over and over. We'll just continue to get the same results. I disbanded the group. Did we help people? Certainly. We would investigate, review, and conclude, and then my friend from the other group would cleanse or help whatever there was to cross over and just leave. And the experiences would end for that client for whatever reason. But at the end of the day, she could have done that with a personal interview and no group and no investigation. An aside regarding EVPs. I was once inside an old walk-in freezer used for storage in the basement of a hotel. Door shut. No electronic signal could penetrate or escape the triple walls of sheet metal and thick insulation. Neither our two-way radios nor our cell phones worked, debunking the theory of picking up stray AM radio stations or any other RF interference. I asked direct questions and got direct answers to those questions on digital voice recorders while in that freezer, and many other places over the years. I also have a device called a tri-field natural EMF meter. I used this because it would, according to the manufacturer, screen out man-made EMF and record only natural EMF. In my experience in testing, that's exactly what it did. So as seen on TV, the most used instruments were digital voice recorders and EMF meters. I'm confident in my experience those work as designed, and I worked hard experimenting to reach a conclusion. To be clear, recorders recorded and EMF meters detected EMF. They did not, however, correlate necessarily to a spiritual presence as they are purported to do. Findings were anecdotal at best. They weren't going to find the Holy Grail. Unfortunately, still today, that's basically all there is, except in different shapes, colors, bells, and whistles. But they all do the same thing. It's just marketing. Follow the money. I still use an EMF detector, but have no reason to do EVPs. I could see exactly how this man's thinking. Exactly. My group members would be annoyed with me because I had the first contact with clients. My goal was to enable people to be able to sleep in their beds and be comfortable in their homes. 2 times family had bags packed and were on their way elsewhere. Regularly, I could solve their situation in emails or just a quick visit to talk. So no need for a full-blown investigation. Trying to schedule an overnight investigation that was not necessary, displace the client for a night, was not what I wanted to do. 99% of the characters in the paranormal world are in it for themselves. The personal experience is the adrenaline rush. And everybody is a freaking psychic. I swear, just ask them. I tried to screen applicants to weed out the adrenaline seekers, but it was hard to do. We had a core group start to end, but went through others along the way over the years. I do not believe that we ever brought anything home from an active location. We did have prescribed rituals to prevent us from happening. It's something I would never, ever do. Rule 1 is never investigate my own house. On more than one occasion, the paranormal investigators in my group would sit in a tight circle with digital audio recorders and conduct an EVP session. There have been audible events like a voice that you hear, but not all people heard it. Maybe only 1 or 2. Sometimes only one recorder picks it up, and they are equidistant to the circle. 2 people together hear a noise, both look, and one sees an apparition, the other doesn't, and they both look at the same spot. So sometimes you hear with your ears or your recorder only, or with your mind only and verified on a recorder. This is a theory that doing random investigations or even targeted spiritual investigations can cause souls to be unable to move on or choose to not move on. I certainly do not want that. During this time, I was totally immersed in the subject of the paranormal and supernatural as it applied to spirits, UFOs, Sasquatch, and such were not connected necessarily. You may have heard of the Rhine Research Center. It's an independent nonprofit parapsychology research center at Duke University. It's been around for almost as long as I have. They offer certifications in different areas of paranormal education for free. I've taken every course that is applicable to my interests. I've also taken classes from several respected notable scientists, educators in different areas of the field, such as the Institute of Noetic Sciences and Dr. Dean Radin. They explore the universal collective consciousness. Back in the 80s, you could get a college degree in parapsychology. Then someone said, how can an accredited educational institution give credits in something that science cannot prove? The degrees, funding, and classes stopped at accredited institutions. The Rhine Center is as close as you can get in this country to a degree. In the UK, you can still get an academic degree in various paranormal subjects. I have a library of close to 400 books on paranormal issues. Note, I had next to no in-depth knowledge or interest in Sasquatch until close to the end of our time with our investigations group. My dad did, however. As a kid, I remember him talking to me about Bigfoot. So little familiarity, little knowledge, little interest, other than most rudimentary. If I saw a picture, I knew what it was. I knew that most people claimed it was. We had 2 indigenous group members that they acquainted with me with Wendigo, Skinwalker, and many other native beliefs, and they felt I had an encounter with the Wendigo on my property at the cabin. But Sasquatch, not until 2011. I had 2 out-of-body experiences and 3 near-death experiences in my life. The first near-death was technically not near. I was shot point blank over my heart onto my ballistic plate with an AK during a high-risk tactical entry. It stopped my heart. I was declared deceased, no vitals, no brain activity. Resuscitation efforts were stopped during the period, and for no reason I started breathing and had a pulse. The NDEs were from one of the AKs stopping my heart for over 14 minutes, no vitals. One from being stabbed with an ice pick in my upper abdomen with such force it nicked my heart and caused extensive blood loss and permanent arrhythmia. And the third was following another heart procedure, no vitals for 11 minutes. Those experiences changed my perspective on many things, especially life, death, and mysteries. I've been in many certain death situations where something or someone intervened and saved my life. Sometimes it just happened. Sometimes I felt that physical force either stopped me or propelled me to safety. Wow. Wow. I've seen in my mind's eye while clearing a building an armed suspect on the other side of a solid wall adjacent to me waiting for me to come through the door, allowing me to take alternative actions to neutralize him. One time my wife and I were going to a potential client's apartment for a preliminary paranormal investigation. We were a couple blocks immediately south of downtown Minneapolis. I was at a stoplight looking at the apartment building a block away. Suddenly it appeared to be in a heavy moving fog surrounded by old-growth trees, and tombstones were everywhere. Where the large parking lot is now, where a yard was. I said to my wife, "Do you see that?" She couldn't see it. As I explained to her, the scene then faded to the present. That experience changed me. Next morning I went to work 3 hours early and got my PC. After almost 3 hours of research, I found a small article in Historical Society archives just by chance indicating that in the late 1800s that address was a main graveyard for the city of Minneapolis. Because of proposed development, they hurriedly moved most of the graves and most of the bodies and stored them in an old flour mill, an adjacent building, until a new cemetery was constructed, and most of the deceased were carelessly moved again. The article indicated that the graves, crypts, and remains were treated very poorly during both moves. This validated exactly what I saw. Today, still it is said that the mill and the Minneapolis Swedish Institute Castle, which is across the street from the apartment building, these locations are haunted. The internet is not kind to you, my friend. I'm disgusted by what people do to you and say about you. I can't believe the crap on YouTube and all over online. Obviously BS about you. I see the titles, the copycats, and I just keep scrolling. I won't read that crap. From individuals to the federal government, I can't believe it. I agree with your evaluations of people and entities. This is partly why I hate social media. I taught my son that just because you can say something doesn't mean you should. People feel safe in saying things that they would never have the balls to say face to face, and there is no accountability. They're cowards. 100% true. They would never say it to your face. When we had the paranormal group, I had the name of a group and a logo on a standard-sized bumper sticker at the bottom of the driver's door window of my truck. We were living at a time in a community just north of the Minneapolis campus. On a very busy road, I started to see an old man with a cane, well-dressed, walk by at dusk, hesitating at my driveway before proceeding looking at the house in my truck. I had heard of that time of incidents of personal attacks, vandalism, and abuse of paranormal groups around the country. One day in the summer, our interior house door was open and I could see the sidewalk and street. I saw this older guy walking. This time he headed up the driveway. He paused at my truck and looked at the sticker. Then he headed to the front step. My gut said, not good. He didn't greet me or introduce himself. Honestly, I don't remember verbatim what he said, which is extremely uncharacteristic of me. It was something like, "Are you a ghost hunter?" or something like that. His facial expression and demeanor changed to the negative. I said, "Yeah, something like that." He started to say something leading with, "You should," and I cut him off. I said, "I'm not interested in your opinion. Please mind off. Please mind your own business and do not stop here again. Just walk on by. My family, my truck, your house will be the first stop for the police." I never saw him again, which was strange. He obviously had a reason for that walk route, and it was the most direct route around there. Suddenly he is gone. That was disconcerting. I removed the sticker. In '84, I bought 20 acres of timberland outside of McGregor, Minnesota. Oh, that's interesting. I wrote a story about a man, a hunter, that disappeared in McGregor, Minnesota. It's part of the Mississippi watershed, and is my estimation 60% timber, 40% water, wetland, and bog. I put an old trailer house on it for a hunting camp. We have since built 2 very nice cabins, one for my son and his family, and one for my wife and me. We're off the grid. No electric, no phone, no running water. But I've worked around all that. We are comfortable for weeks at a time. 12-volt batteries, generator, stored water, LP heating, cooking, and all wood heat. To jump ahead for a moment, I do believe this property has portals on it. And that's where I'll stop. This is a very long letter, and it gets much, much, much better. Not that that wasn't great. So let me say to you, I've had long letters like this before. I don't usually read them. This man did an exceptionally good job writing this. Made it easy for me to read. And his story about himself and how he's going to go into portals and orbs and things on this property is stellar. Thanks, Mike, for sending it. And the next letter segment will try to complete this. In the meantime, I hope you like the letters. I'm doing this for you. And I appreciate you guys from the bottom of my heart. Without you, I wouldn't be here. And if I don't say it enough, I should. Now, our website is open, NA like North America, NABigfootsearch.com. You can go there, and our store is online. Books are $24.99, whereas if you go to Amazon, they're $75 to $100. Thank you. Huck is asleep, almost snoring now. I think I put her to sleep. Whew. But anyhow, you have a great day. If God's willing, I'll be back again. Paulides out.